إلا ما أيوة.
You say you give me a shot.
I give you a shot?
No.
I give everybody a shot.
Inshallah.
Which one? No, what was my
Just
promise?
Me. Just me, inshallah.
Inshallah.
But
say less.
Maybe everyone can benefit.
Maybe or maybe not.
Perhaps.
I got you.
I'm the student in that one, so maybe I could be fine with you.
Man of honor must keep his word. May Allah make his men of honor.
Amen.
You'll get your explanation, inshallah. Next question. Fadl akhi.
So the question I had was that, if I'm not mistaken, there's a severe warning against...
One second, akhi. I'm sorry. Abdul Wadud. Have you seen my atlas? My world atlas? You haven't seen it, right? Khairan. Fadl akhi. Excuse my interruption.
So if I'm not mistaken, there's a severe warning against lying in regards to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So as laymen, what is the extent to which we can paraphrase or summarize a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
Right. With regards to the severe threat, the gravity of lying upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to what extent can a lay man or lay woman paraphrase a hadith? The scholars of Islam have allowed this with two conditions. Number one, is for a person not to distort the hadith from its original meaning. And number two, you be learned of the skill of paraphrasing, meaning synonyms, language. This word can be exchanged for that one. Versus, no, this is two different things, right? So therefore, if you know how to do that and you don't distort the words of the Prophet, there's nothing wrong with narrating the hadith and meaning, paraphrasing it, taking a snippet from it, as long as it isn't a distortion. And of course, narrating the hadith, quoting the hadith as it exactly states is even better. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Ahmed.
When doing on Sajdatul Tilawah in Surah Al-Alaq, where it's in the last ayah, when we come back up, should you say another surah or you go right into the
Last verse from Surah Al-Alaq, you come back up after the sajda. Should you recite another surah or not? It's optional. Inshallah, it's optional. Bismillah ta'ala. Fadal. Anything from online? But it's not back there, akhi. The book, you haven't purchased the book yet. I thought you would have got that. It was a rhetorical question. No? May Allah bless you. Ameen. Father Muzammil.
Yeah. And jumping off of that, same question.
Piggybacking.
Yeah.
Can you say that? A piggyback? Can a Muslim have a motorcycle and call it a hog? Huh? What's the ruling on riding on the back of a swine? Huh? A filthy, najis, and then being proud of it. Some Muslims, huh? La ilaha illallah. Allahumma sa'an. May Allah guide us all. Fadl akhi.
Yeah. So, if a person is reciting a surah and there's a ayah of sajda, is it mandatory in the salah that they prostrate? And when they do come back up, they raise their hand.
Is it mandatory? Two main views of the ulama. Some say yes, some say no. The safest thing is to make the sajda. Scholars, they differ on that issue. Is it mandatory? The sajda fi tilawah. Secondly is raising the hands when you come back up. You're going to come back up into the normal position, as if you came up from the end of rak'ah. What you would normally do, you do. What you wouldn't normally do, you're not going to do. Wallahu a'lam. Idris.
If I visit in-laws in a rural area, them and everyone within a 2-hour drive is like Christian, Catholic, Jehovah's Witnesses. Should I stick to a vegetarian diet or should I eat from what they cook?
Visiting family members in a rural area. Most people within a large radius is Christian, Jehovah's Witnesses, etc., etc. What should I do? Should I stick to a vegetarian diet or etc.? Tell them you only eat fish. Inshallah. Can't go wrong with that, right? Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Wallahu a'lam. Sana, fadal.
Let's say you have a hadith with slight weakness, maybe the rawi is unknown. So the matan of that hadith, is it never supported by Shaykh hadith?
Is it never supported?
Yeah, because if it's da'if, that means that it could never be supported by Shaykh hadith. Is that correct? The matan of it.
A da'if hadith, the matan, there's no issue with the matan, but there's an issue with the isnad, right? Can that matan support or be supported by a sahih hadith, so on and so on and so forth? Okay. In general, yes. In general, yes. The sound meaning is going to be used, mentioned, even acted upon. In general, there is a very long discussion of the scholars of Islam with regards to al-hasan li ghayrihi. What's meant by hasan li ghayrihi? Is it 3 da'if hadiths put together, 2 da'if hadiths put together, or is that a hasan li ghayrihi, the da'if hadith that is supported by the sahih hadiths? It's a long discussion on hasan li ghayrihi. The more you study the foundations of ilm al-mustalah and ilm al-rijal, and you work your way up, book after book, year after year, it allows you to dig into the longer discussions of hasan li ghayrihi with regards to the mutaqaddimin and the mutaakhirin. Is there a difference between the 2 schools, old school, new school, so on and so forth? And this is a very important issue, whereas there are many different hadiths which would be normally da'if, but they're declared hasan, and there are rulings in those hadiths, details in those hadiths, things affirmed and attributed to Allah or the hereafter or the tafsir in those hadiths, right? It's a very, very long discussion. So the more you study mustalah properly, and the more books that you complete systematically, the easier it is to delve into that. But in general, a weak hadith along with a sahih hadith, it gives some type of strength. 2 da'ifs together, 3 da'ifs together, different discussion. Allahu a'lam. Father Akhi.
If your job consists of driving out of New York City every day, you're still allowed to pay jannah?
Yeah, if you have to drive out of New York City every day, you're still a traveler, even if you do it every day. Wallahu a'lam. Father. Father Akhi.
Just a follow-up to the previous question. If you were to misquote a hadith, very just maybe the harakats is slightly off. If you were to quote a hadith, does that throw you into the punishment or to the?
La, if you make a grammatical error in a hadith, as long as it doesn't change the meaning, that's fine. That's fine. And of course, if you have any doubt, you do without. Doubt na yaribuka. Quoted in English. Okay? And of course, if you pay attention, you'll notice, I'm speaking about myself now, as a teacher, as an example, is that whenever I quote a hadith, oftentimes you'll hear me say, "O kama qala," "O bihadha al-ma'na." All right? You give yourself breathing room. Something like this. Even if you feel that you've memorized the exact wording, but you always what? Alright, you notice that? Wallahu a'lam. There's a wisdom behind that. Wallahu a'lam. Father Ahmed.
MS for when you have to wait, can you make sajda to tilawa when sitting?
Can a person make sajda to tilawa while sitting? If you have the ability to do it the normal way, you do it the normal way. If you're sitting down and you're reading something, you can't get up, that's a different story. And one may say, even if a person can get up, it's not necessarily mandatory, you do what you can. But the asal is to make the sujood in the normal manner. Wallahu a'lam. Na'am akhi.
Jalsat al-istiraha, is it like something you have to do? Or?
You don't have to do jalsat al-istiraha. Scholars, they differ on its legality. Is it legal or not? Did the Prophet ﷺ do it ta'abudan am hajatan? Is it an actual part of the prayer? Or did the Messenger of Allah ﷺ do that jilsa out of physical, manly, human need? But under any circumstances, something which is necessarily yani fard. But those who say that it is from the ibadah, they want to say, Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. Pray as you've seen me pray. And for sure, they saw the Prophet ﷺ take that jilsa, that break, meaning before getting up. Naam? Wallahu alam. Salih.
Who are the scholars of reason?
Who are the scholars of reason? In general, I said, I quote, in general, many scholars who use that terminology, they were talking about Abu Hanifa and his disciples and other scholars of Kufa, whether it was Sufyan al-Thawri or others, ulama who came from Iraq, who came from Kufa, that for one reason or another, oftentimes gave their opinion, their reasoning. That's in brief. Now, the discussion of Iraq and the history of Islam there, and the discussion of the different groups and schisms and denominations and aqidah and fiqh and ibadah and hadith is a long discussion. There were different madhabs there, and of course, many of those madhab followers were fanatical. And many of them said things against their opponents, their fiqh opponents, against those who didn't share their madhabs, calling each other names, classifying, marginalizing, you people are this, you people are that, we're this, just like today. Calling someone a terrorist, a fundamentalist, an idealist, or this or that, because we don't share the same terminology, therefore I give you a what? A terminology. You're an extremist. Why? Because I don't take your lax opinion? Method. Oh, you're a this. Why? Because I don't agree with you? So that's a sad reality of Islamic history in Iraq. And for sure, there are different scholars who had different varying degrees of knowledge and different varying degrees of understanding and awareness of hadiths. But to say that this scholar never had no hadiths, he never implemented no hadiths, he never acted upon no hadiths, it's not necessarily accurate. Okay, this is a very long discussion with regards to Imam Abu Hanifa, may Allah have mercy on him and others, before, during, and after his time. And there were many people who refuted Abu Hanifa, rejected many of his opinions, before, during, and after. Okay, and sometimes certain people, they got certain names because of what they kept doing, or if they did something abundantly, not saying that they never did anything else, but because they did it so much, they just what? Gave them the title. Right. And there were some scholars who noticed a fact. They dealt with a lot of hypothetical and rhetorical situations, maybe too much. And they would say, أرأيت رجلا كذا أرأيت إن كذا أرأيت إن نزل مني إن حصل مني أرأيت إن طلق رجل كذا أرأيت يرثها. What if a man dies and he has 3 wives? One is an iddah, one is being... What if a man breaks his wudu because kadha? What if a man has kadha? What if a woman has birth in the salat? What if kadha? They would ask a lot of questions like this. They weren't practical questions, plausible questions. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ says that the man who is most learned of the Quran should lead the people in the prayer. يَأُمُّ الْقَوْمُ أَقْرَأُهُمْ لِكِتَابِ اللَّهِ إِنْ كَانَ فِي الْقِرَاءَةِ سَوَاءً فَأَعْلَمُهُمْ بِالسُّنَّةِ. If they're equal in recitation, then the hadith, etc. You find some scholars, they go and they differ to the trifles. Whose beard is longer? Who's this? Who's taller? Who's kether? And even things I won't even mention online. As a determination, we're equal in Quran, Hadith, etc. Who's this? Who has this? Or who has this? So you be shocked at certain things. What's the practicality of that? What's the chances of a masjid, men being equal in 20 things, starting from the Quran on down until, all right, let's stick out your thumb. Who has the biggest thumb? Method. What's the what? What's the practicality of that? Men being equal in the Quran? No doubt. The Hadith clearly states that. Men being equal in the Hadith, knowledge, mumkin. Men being awake, mumkin. Those who made the most hijrah, mumkin. But my thumb is larger, therefore I'm going to be the imam of the salah. So oftentimes many of these imams and these scholars, they dealt with these hypothetical, rhetorical questions too much. And they used their minds on the hadiths a bit too much. And expanding and expounding upon what the hadith stated. The Prophet says you can't eat this, so therefore you can't even have that. And you can't eat this, and you can't keva, and keva, and keva. And therefore they were given the title of what? Ahlul Ra'i. That they're using their minds and their opinions too much. and they don't have enough athar with them, or they're disregarding athar, or they're using their brains before the athar a bit too much. So they were given the title what? Ahlul Ra'i. Just like there's Ahlul Hadith. And it doesn't mean that the people of Hadith didn't have a Ra'i. It doesn't mean that they didn't use any type of aql or understanding. But the beef was the main course on their plates. And they were called Ahlul Hadith. The Hadith doesn't say that, khalas, stop. The Prophet says, didn't make the haram, don't bring your qiyas. وهكذا. Wallahu alam. وإياكم. تفضل أخي.
Sheikh, can machine slaughter be considered dhabiha? Is just pushing a button?
Machine slaughter. Is it dhabiha, etc., etc.? Some scholars have allowed that today. Some scholars even conclude, they state that most of the chicken in North America is halal. Many scholars have given this fatwa. Some of them say up to 70%, 75% of chicken in the United States, in Canada, stay with me now. There's a reason why they say this. Whether you agree or not is a different story, but there's a reason why they say this. Many of them hold the view that most of the chicken in North America is lawful to eat, even if it's from a non-Muslim restaurant. And not just because Ahl Kitab, but because of the nature of the machine slaughtering and those who are operating the machines. All right? There have been fiqh conferences just on this one issue of meat. And you'd be shocked when you read some of the edicts that they came out with from those conferences. And one of the reasons behind this is the person working in the slaughterhouse oftentimes is a Muslim. Forget the Jew and Christian, but oftentimes is a Muslim. And they're operating the machine as a Muslim. As far as a cow, a goat, a sheep, a bigger, heavier animal with more blood, more weight mass, that's what? Different discussion. But the chicken, oftentimes many scholars, they say that it's lawful to eat even if it's machine slaughtered. All right? As long as the person says Bismillah before the machine is operated. So for argument's sake, a person, their chickens, they're hanging up, and the person says Bismillah Allahu Akbar, go, green. Zzz, 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 zzz. They say all of those chickens that have been zzz, are what? Lawful. Many scholars have given that fatwa of today. Allahu A'lam. Fadal.
In the hadith, the Prophet says, best among you are those who learn the Quran and teach it. Is he only talking about people who teach recitation, tajweed, or does also pertain to the mufassir and people who teach tafsir?
It includes everything. Best of you are those who learn the Quran and teach it. However, learning the Quran and teaching it with regards to the practicality, the basic recitation, the basic memorization, the basic understanding of the Quran, that's more beneficial to the people instead of 10 qira'at. And there's no disrespect to qira'at or people of qira'at. That's not the point. But we're talking about practicality. For a person to master hafs, learn the tafsir, know the rulings of the Quran is better than this qira'ah, that qira'ah, this ijazah, etc., etc., etc. Let alone, we see how people behave when it comes to ijazah. Do you find people going around arguing, fighting over tafsir? When's the last time? Honestly, tell me one time. A person says, I've read Ibn Kathir from cover to cover, which is a major accomplishment. I read Ibn Kathir 2-3 times. I read Tabari. I sleep with Tabari. I've memorized Qurtubi. You never find that. Evident. You never find people going around gloating and bragging, I know every hukum in the Quran. Challenge me. From the Fatiha to Nas, I'll give you the tafsir. You'll never find that. But how often do you find what? La shak fi dhalik. He knows this qira'ah. He knows that qira'ah. He knows 10 qira'ah, 12 qira'ahs. He has qira'ah, or what qira'ah he's on. It's a problem, and it's not an accident. You get the point I'm trying to make? And oftentimes many brothers like this, if you ask them about something basic from the Quran and it's fiqh, they what? They would be clueless. Or many people will go around bragging and talking about the Quran and its recitation. If you ask them to finish a verse and I had to quote it, they wouldn't be able to. And there's a reason behind that. And that's because many people have lost the focus of the Quran. You get the point I'm trying to make? And I'm not talking about nobody specifically. No one take this the wrong way. I'm not talking about anybody specifically. I'm not picking on anybody. I'm not saying anything about any place or country, Medina, Azhar. I'm not talking about nobody specifically. If the shoe fits, it applies. So there's a hikmah behind that. All right? So the concept of the meanings of the Quran, the understanding of the Quran, la shak. and the scholars of Islam, they've spoken on this with regards to what's better. Reading the Quran with speed or reading it slowly and understanding it and pondering on it. We've quoted this, what the scholars of Islam said about that. And also, with regards to leading the prayer. Who is to be the imam? The one who's memorized the whole Quran, the one who knows the qira'at, or the one who has the fiqh of the salah down pat, the faqih. I've memorized the Fatiha and Juz Amma. Not Baqarah, Nisa, Ali Imran, I don't know this Warsh, I don't know none of that. I know Amma Yatasa'alun to Qul A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas. But if you ask me about this mistake, this issue, what to do, I what? Some scholars say that person takes precedence in the salah over the qari who has no fiqh. Nah? Wallahu a'lam. Wa yakum. Fadal.
IT Roseville, California. What is the ruling on car and health insurance? If I get the basic insurance, as many automatically to get, if something were to happen, the bill would be so big.
Car, health, house, boat, business, etc. insurance. Allah knows the troublemaker from the peacemaker. That's what I would say. Allah knows those are good intentions and those are bad intentions. If it's a need, you do what you have to do based off of need. If it's a necessity, you do what you have to do based off of necessity, and then that's it. You don't take anything more than that. Anyone who's ever been in a car accident or may all prevent, had your house burned down or your store vandalized or something, you know the importance and the necessity and the virtue of what? That's a fact. 10,000, 12,000, 15, 20,000 to get this fixed, to get this replaced. Versus a deductible and then the rest is taken care of. We'll have you back on what? Rent a car. Your car is destroyed. And we'll take you to, you'll be driving within a matter of minutes. Who has the money to pay for that out of his pocket? So the point I'm trying to get to is many different rulings in fatwa, no doubt, are impractical. That's a fact. Impractical. It sounds good on paper, it looks good, but in reality, who's buying a house from the money out of their pocket? Who can afford that? Who can afford that? Some of my brothers, mashallah, bless us with wealth. But the average Joe is what? How am I supposed, that's a lot of money. Thousands and thousands of dollars. Tax, that's a lot of money people don't have. You understand? And the same applies to a tragedy, something that you can't expect. Right? Something that you can't necessarily plan for or prepare for. Who has the money to pay $20,000 out of their pocket to get it fixed? It's difficult. So oftentimes insurance is a necessity. And oftentimes it is a necessity, but it's a haja, it's a need. And sometimes insurance isn't needed and you don't necessarily have to have it. And the same applies to electronics. Paying Apple Pay, right? No, I don't need that. Okay, your phone falls, bang, shatters. You see your brand new phone. The tablet's replaced. Versus now you have to buy what? A new phone. You get a screen put on it, it's messed up. It's hikmah behind that. Wallahu a'lam.
H. New York. That the woman during the Prophet's time is to wear makeup, and if so, what kind?
Did women during the time of the Prophet wear makeup and if what kind? There are hadiths in which the women of the Sahaba adorned themselves for their husbands. Yes. Several narrations. Beauty and adornment. Shaving. Removing hair. Things like this. The Prophet ﷺ clearly mentions never to enter upon your wife at nighttime after returning from a journey. You are away for days, you give your wife a heads up. You give your wife a heads up. You just don't say, honey, I'm home, and come in. And the hadith clearly states for a woman to comb her hair. And for a woman to shave the parts of her body in which hair is unwanted. Because her husband was away, he's back, she needs to prepare herself. So there are several narrations with regards to beautification and adornment of a woman for her husband. And different things that the Sahabiyat did. Okay, you can read those hadiths, inshallah ta'ala, in those books. Right, I'll give you a reference. All right, the concept of the etiquette of marriage. Wahakada, libas, kitab al-zina, different books of hadith have chapters on beauty, on clothing, etc., etc. What's important is the makeup of the Sahaba, the women of the Sahaba, of course, is going to be very different from the makeup of us, of our times today. Okay, consumerism, the availability of different products, so on and so on, what? And so forth. Makeup is generally permissible unless it leads you to a haram act or a haram product. And not to get too philosophical, but like many other things in life, there's a dark side to makeup. Many of your favorite makeups come from great suffering, great human suffering. Poor people in worse than third world countries slave and die in caves to extract this product that shimmers and shines on your lips or your eyes. But that's life, right? The blood diamond, right? There are many things like this. So I would say is take the makeup with a what? Grain of salt, figuratively speaking, right? Wallahu ta'ala. And of course the other rulings with regards to a woman wearing makeup outside of the house and her face being covered. And that's a long discussion. Yani, Muslim men allowing their daughters and wives to go outside wearing tight clothes, to go outside with makeup on, go outside with their kimars flying open, their ears out. That's yani, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Rather, Muslim men wearing tight stuff and revealing stuff. May Allah help us all, guide us all. Father Akhi,
What's your opinion on hijrah?
what's my opinion on hijrah? If you can make it, you should make it, for sure. If you can, why not? No doubt. And some people have to make hijrah. Certain instances, certain situations, there's too much fitna. A person can't live, a person can't, rest. There's no doubt about that. In general, the world today, and how things are, the Muslim countries, Middle East, North Africa, we're almost done. How we live on a daily basis, our lives with the non-Muslims, with the kuffar, the mixing, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. Wallahu a'lam.
By Allah in Canada, Assalamu alaikum. What do we do when an elderly is slightly out of line with their jokes? Is it always better to ignore them or can you respond?
Someone elderly,
Yeah.
the religion is advice. Somebody gives a joke that's inappropriate, give them a nasiha, whoever they are. Try to do it in the best manner, but no one is above and beyond advice. Nobody. Wallahu a'lam.
AS at Islamic UK. Did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam have snacks throughout the day or did he just have set meals? That's all question.
Well, yakum. Did the Prophet have snacks throughout the day or did he have set meals? Is there hadiths? The Prophet ate things. There wasn't necessarily a meal. Dates, different things like this, drinks, water with honey in it, things like this. It wasn't necessarily a meal. There's nothing wrong with having a snack. Wallahu a'lam.
AS at Islamic UK. How is eating organically, which takes a lot of time, reconciled with quotes from the Salaf that would eat food which they could finish quickly? That's all I'm
Eating organically, that takes a lot of time.
Yeah, and how is it reconciled with quotes from the Salaf that would eat?
Calls from the Salaf that would eat what?
That they would eat food which they could finish quickly.
Which they would finish quickly. They can finish quickly. I don't understand the question. I don't see how eating organically takes a lot of time. I don't understand that. Maybe you can explain. Wallahu a'lam.
H.A. Hamilton, Canada. My grandma is sick with COVID. Can I read Quran for her even if I'm not there physically?
Many scholars have allowed donating and offering good deeds for the deceased. As far as your grandmother is alive herself, make dua for her. If you have the ability to be by her side, read the Quran to her. Hopefully it will benefit her. Wallahu a'lam. Abu Hussein.
What are the signs an individual is ready to teach a subject?
Signs that an individual is ready to teach a subject.
No.
That his teacher approves of it. And a person, the default is not to be self-taught. That's not the default. The default is tutelage, disciplism. You are supposed to sit under someone. They're supposed to show you physically. You're supposed to stay with that person until they say, leave the nest, leave the dojo, get out. It kicks you out. There's nothing more I can teach you. Please, Sheikh. Say what? You must go. Nothing. And there's nothing wrong with you reading things on the side and you learning things on the side. As far as if you don't have someone to teach you and you are self-taught and you wish to teach others, then obviously that doesn't apply. So you're going to teach other people the signs that it's time to teach. People keep asking you. And the people unanimously, overwhelmingly think and feel that we need you to teach. Oh no, I don't want to. Oh no, they say, Akhi, we need you to teach. Oh no, Akhi, we need you to teach the class. They keep asking. You're the best from among them. Another sign is that you feel confident that you've mastered it. Even self-taught. You've read it, it's nothing more that you can get it. After you read it 3, 4, 5, 10 times, whatever. You've tested yourself on the memorization, but teaching someone something without being evaluated yourself is dangerous. It's dangerous. Wallahu a'lam.
Hey, as a plan in UK, what are all the categories of argument, development, example?
Categories of ilm al-batin. Allahu a'lam.
QB, London, UK. Do I have to cut my mustache within every 40 days, even if it doesn't grow that big?
The mustache should be trimmed every Friday. Cut it and trim it every Friday. Thursday night, Friday morning, look after your mustache. Even if it doesn't grow that big. Do it for the sunnah. Alright? Wallahu a'lam. Fadl Ahmed. Irkabha, right? Ride what? The camel. I see their hands up. You ride the camel.
that's Matthew, NC. Assalamu alaikum. Is it permissible to perform an experiment on ants without hurting them? I will try to release them afterwards, but they might die in the wild without a colony.
Performing an experiment on ants. If it doesn't hurt them or kill them, but it's a possibility that they may die,
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it. Ants should be respected. All creations of Allah should be respected. But ant is mentioned in the Quran. Wallahu a'lam.
Assalamu alaikum. 80 Boston MN. Should I say tashahhud after two account before making a third account and witr salah?
It's optional. You're making witr, if you want to salam out twice, or just salam out at the end of the third rak'ah, it's optional. If you are going to stand up towards the third rak'ah, make the tashahhud. That's a fact. Every 2 rak'ah, there is a tashahhud, period. Whether you're salamming out or not, there's a tashahhud after every 2 rak'ah. Wallahu a'lam.
And this is RA from Boston MN. Any advice on drip and how to dress for men?
Any advice on what?
On drip.
Drip. Allahu Akbar. Well, I'm not a drip guy, so you gotta ask some of these, these drip masters. Some brothers, mashallah, get real fly. Well, alhamdulillah, mashallah, handsome. Allah is beautiful, and Allah loves beauty. There's nothing wrong with that. From the little bit that I know, that I've learned from other brothers and women as well, not just men. A woman could teach you drip, right? From the little that I know is, if I had to make a principle principles on drip, right? Qawa'id drip, yani. Principles on drip, right? Or dressing nicely. Principle number 1 is be yourself. That's principle number 1 in my book. Be yourself. Don't try to be like the next man. There's nothing wrong with you having your own style. They don't like it, they ain't feeling it, as long as you're comfortable. Be yourself. Confidence, all of that starts within you and it exudes externally. I'm dressing like this, it makes me feel good. If you give me a compliment, I don't want to look, whatever, no best, but start with yourself. That's number 1. Number 2 is you're going to wear clothes big in that towel that you can afford. And your style should be designed around that which is affordable to you. Don't buy something that's fake. Don't buy something that looks cheesy because of how it looks, but that's above your budget. Make it work with what you got. Number 3, bidnillahi ta'ala, is diversity. Mix it up. You don't always have to wear the same thing. Different style, just like eat different foods. If you do. Sometimes we go out, eat sushi. Sometimes we have Middle Eastern. Sometimes we want West African food. Sometimes we have Desi food. Sometimes we want soul food, American food. Sometimes we want pizza. Okay? Sometimes we may want Thai or Turkish or Uzbek or whatever. Mix it up. Doesn't hurt to mix it up. The next principle is never be afraid to experiment. Something became a style, something became trendy, something became drip because someone was brave enough to say, let me try it. Someone had to introduce it. You ever ask yourself, how does trend begin? You ever ask yourself that question? There's always a martyr. There's always someone who starts it off. People will accept it or reject it, but it's someone who has to what? Say where it is. So there's nothing wrong with you being a little courageous. And other than that, I would say coordination, right? With your colors, with your styles, with your fabrics, man. And for a man, a Muslim man, no matter how nice you're trying to look, always have a little bit of ruggedness with you. If you're wearing a 3-piece suit, you gotta have, in my book, one thing on you that's rugged. Everything can't be super polished. Something got to be rugged. Something. You're wearing a thobe, you're wearing this, you're wearing this. Something on you got to be what? Something. Whatever that thing may be. And your pants, the pants you're wearing, something got to be rugged. And a man shouldn't spend that much time in the mirror. He shouldn't be like a woman. There's nothing, look handsome, look nice, look after your appearance, but at the same time, leave what? 10%, 15% of what? Ruggedness. And there are many things in the Sunnah that prove this. The beard. Perfect example. One of the biggest problems upon the Ummah today is the Muslims seeking guidance from the non-Muslims. And if you want to deal with demographics, the Middle East or the Far East, seeking the guidance from the West. And from that is the beard. And that it's best, it's professional, it's hygienic, it's advanced, modern, progressive, to look like a boy. To have a shaven face. And to have a full beard or whatever type beard is, barbaric or dirty or lacking hygiene, or you're stuck in the past, you're cavemen, etc., 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 etc. You get the point I'm trying to make? So a Muslim man, no matter what he's wearing, no matter how nice he's looking, just by him having a beard, that in itself is a level of what? Ruggedness. You have a handsome face, but at the same time, what? You have a beard. What happened to that? Wallahu ta'ala alam. Further, ya akhi.
For a person who wants to pursue Dawah in their area, do you recommend seeking knowledge online or overseas?
Person wants to pursue Dawah. They want to give Dawah online or overseas. Do both. But nothing is like the live show. Hands down. Listening to an artist is not the same as experiencing an artist in person. It's nothing like going to the source of ilm. Period. Nothing will ever compare to that. Zoom online university is nothing the same as sitting with your teacher in person. Let alone the benefits that you get from traveling, sacrificing, being away from your friends and your family members, and just you making that sacrifice, Allah will bless you. So I would advise, go overseas. Even if things are different, I don't have to go to Medina for 15 years like you had to go. No problem. I don't have to do this and that, no problem. But you have to have some stripes under your belt. And it cannot be a thing in which you're teaching, speaking, talking, and you never, ever went overseas. It is disrespectful to the art. It is disrespectful to those who went overseas. A self-taught person, an online person, microwavable paper plate scholar, sitting on a panel, on a podium next to someone who was overseas for years out of their life. It's a problem. And the more microwavable meals you have, and the more cheap, flimsy, throwaway paper plates and paper cups that you have, the more harmful it is to the people who's eating and dining. Instead of having a standard. Don't bring that in this house. Don't bring this microwavable thing in this house. Only homemade stuff, fresh ingredients, organic ingredients, etc. You upholding a standard filters things that don't need to be present. Oh, it's all right. You didn't have to study overseas. It's different. That allows people who have no qualifications, people who should not be talking, should not be speaking, should not be giving dawah. It does what? It allows them in versus having a standard. We only accept this. We only accept that. So I'll put a chapter in 40 Hadith on Seeking Knowledge, Volume 2. Never eat from paper plates. Never eat from a paper plate. Only eat from wood or china, something real authentic. And that is taking the knowledge from those who took their knowledge, pedigree. It's snagged. Right? As far as someone who just pops up overnight, I listen to this class, I listen to this lecture, and I'm a speaker, I'm a talker, I'm an emoji, LOL, shake, blah, 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 blah. That's a problem. It's a mushkila. And it's one of the reasons why people suffer in dawah, is because people are talking and speaking that should not be talking and speaking. Wallahu a'lam. Fadal.
How should one identify, what are some of the principles one should use to identify someone who has a lot of information rather than having a lot of knowledge?
One who has a lot of information versus one who has a lot of knowledge. Sometimes it's synonyms. Sometimes knowledge is information. And sometimes knowledge meaning wisdom, hikmah, fiqh, understanding. And there are levels of that as well. There are brothers who have knowledge, alhamdulillah, but they may not have experience. Or there are brothers who have experience, but there are brothers who have what? more experience with that fiqh, with that ilm. وهكذا. So there's always different levels, right? What's important is you take the benefit wherever you find it. And the Messenger of Allah ﷺ tells us is that there are those who may receive knowledge secondhand or understand it better than those who receive it firsthand. There's always levels behind that. And the teacher that you take as your teacher should have everything. Knowledge, information, wisdom, experience, know-how, etc. Wallahu a'lam. Abu Sam, fadl. Wa yakum.
Should an individual feel shyness when speaking the truth?
Should you feel shyness when speaking the truth? Shyness is always good in Islam. Shyness is the backbone of one's deen. No shyness, no backbone. You'll do anything. You'll fall victim to anything. You'll fall into anything without haya. But oftentimes, people, they misidentify haya. And haya is oftentimes a thin line between haya, shyness, and cowardice. Okay? So be brave when you have to speak the truth. Seek Allah's help. Ask Allah to make you strong. And there are times in which you may be a little shy. Someone's older than you. I feel a little embarrassed, but I have to say it. So you seek Allah's help. Put your trust in Allah and say what you believe in your heart. And whenever you have that courage, and whenever you have that brave spirit, which I wish I had, honestly, to say whatever, regardless of people's feelings, Allah will always support you. And even if you get into trouble or people don't like you, you'll always have that respect. Wallahu a'lam.
A.M. Baltimore, Maryland. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. What is a good curriculum / syllabus of books to teach to Muslims in the West and the order which they should be taught?
A good syllabus, this will be our last question tonight. A good curriculum to teach Muslims in the West, and in what order should they be taught, etc., etc. The teacher, he should teach his community in the West what he has learned in a simple manner. Simplify that what you've learned. So if you study this book, then that book, etc., you're going to teach the same thing, but just simplify it. Make it easier. Take certain things out, give them what's necessary, and look at the difference in the people. Very important aspect when it comes to teaching is that there in the West, those who are hungry for knowledge. And in the West, we have those who are just normal Muslims. They want to hear the good word and keep it moving. Kalima tayyiba, Juma, that's it. And then there are those who want to ask questions, who want to learn, who want to benefit, and then there are those who are just getting by. So first and foremost is you must differentiate between the nature of the listener. You can't teach everyone the same thing, the same manner. So there's a difference between a khutbah, there's a difference between a fa'idah versus a class, private class, personal class. There's hardcore, and then there's softcore. You have to make the difference between the two. So I can't give you one specific book or set or syllabus. That's because of the need for flexibility, who you're teaching and who you're speaking to. But if you ask for a general rule, the books that you learn, the books that you study with your teachers, you teach them to the people, but in a simplified, easy manner. And of course, there's a cutoff point in which you have no business teaching this book, barakallahu fikum, to the general people. It's a cutoff point. Book 1, book 2, and then class. Book 3 is only for those who are وهكذا. والله أعلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.